Yeah, it's amazing how looking back at history can really make you question your own assumptions, right?
It really can. Things look so different through another era's lens.
Definitely. And today we're diving into something pretty sensitive, a really debated topic in Islamic history, the marriage of Prophet Muhammad to Aisha.
Yeah, it's one of those subjects that sparks intense discussion. Scholars, believers, critics. It's still very much alive today, even now in, what, mid-2025.
Absolutely. And the core of the controversy, it sort of boils down to a few things, doesn't it?
It does. You've got Aisha's reported age, questions around her consent, and maybe most importantly, the cultural world of 7th century Arabia.
Exactly. So the big question for you listening in is probably this. Can we understand this marriage as, let's say, defensible within that time's norms? Or does it just fundamentally clash with our ethics today?
That's the tension we're exploring.
And our mission here for this deep dive is really to handle this with, nuance and respect.
Hmm.
We're looking at historical accounts, the actual cultural practices back then, and also Aisha's own legacy, which is, well, it's pretty incredible and maybe surprising to some.
Right.
By the way, finding solid info for topics like this can be tricky. We often find great starting points and detailed analysis over at Mind Expansion Daily. Seriously, if you want more insights like this, you should check them out.
Good point. And our goal isn't just listing facts like what happened. It's trying to get a handle on why it mattered then and how those historical realities connect to the debates we still hear today.
Seeing the bigger picture.
Exactly, seeing the full picture. So, okay, to really get this marriage, we need to kind of step back into 7th century Arabia.
Set the scene for us.
Right. Imagine this harsh desert environment, life expectancy, probably hovering around 40 years old, maybe? It's brutal.
40?
Yeah. And society is tribal. Everything, I mean, everything is shaped by survival, by needing alliances, and of course, this is the very beginning of Islam. It's fragile. Social structures are all about keeping the tribe together. That's priority number one.
So marriage in that context, it's not really about finding the one like we might think today.
Not primarily, no. It was much more of a strategic tool, a way to build alliances between families or tribes, maybe settle long-standing feuds, basically strengthen the community for survival.
Practicality over passion, essentially.
You could say that. It was about the collective good, the tribe's future.
Okay, so let's get right to it, Aisha's age. This is probably the most discussed part.
It usually is.
What do the main historical accounts say?
Well, the majority consensus, especially if you look at key Islamic sources like Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim major hadith collection.
The sayings and actions of the prophet.
Exactly. They generally state she was betrothed quite young, maybe 6 or 7, around 620 CE. And then the marriage itself was consummated a few years later, after the move to Medina, around 622 CE. At that point, she's reported as being 9 or 10.
9 or 10.
Yeah.
That's the number that causes the most difficulty for modern listeners, I think.
Understandably, but here's where it gets more complex. That's the majority view, yes, but it's not the only interpretation out there.
Oh.
Some scholars, even respected classical ones like Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani and more modern researchers too, they suggest she might have been older, maybe closer to 12 or even 14.
How do they argue that?
They point to a few things. Potential inconsistencies in how dates were recorded back then, it wasn't always precise. And also, Aisha's reported involvement in things like the Battle of Badr. Some argue a 9 or 10-year-old wouldn't likely have been present or involved in that way.
Interesting.
And it raises a key question. What did age even mean then? It wasn't just a number like today. Readiness for marriage was often linked to puberty, not turning a specific age. Okay, so physical maturity was the marker.
Largely, yes. And Aisha's puberty is actually mentioned in some accounts related to the marriage. Plus, early marriage wasn't an isolated thing in Arabia. Studies, like one from the Journal of Historical Sociology in 2023, show it was pretty common across many pre-modern cultures globally.
That context is so important. Puberty, not just the number. And this practice, early marriage, it was standard in 7th century Arabia.
Very much so. Driven by real social, even economic needs, you arrange a marriage young to secure an alliance, maybe protect the family's honor or resources. And like we said, consummation often waited until puberty.
Right. Yeah, and just to give you a bit more context, a 2024 article in Middle Eastern Studies noted that even before Islam, tribes like the Quraysh often married girls aged maybe 8 to 12 to older men.
So it wasn't something new with Islam.
No, not at all. And you saw similar practices in powerful neighboring societies too, like the Byzantine and Sassanid empires. Even Muhammad's first wife, Khadija, She was apparently betrothed young in her first marriage, before Muhammad. It shows how deeply embedded this custom was.
Okay, so putting that custom aside for a moment, what about the strategic side of this specific marriage? Muhammad and Aisha,
Oh, hugely significant. Aisha was the daughter of Abu Bakr.
his closest companion, right?
Yeah.
And the first caliph after Muhammad died.
Exactly, the
Right.
absolute key ally. So this marriage wasn't just personal, it was deeply political. It massively strengthened Muhammad's position, especially after the move to Medina when things were still quite unstable.
Wow, so.
Well, it cemented that crucial alliance with Abu Bakr and his influential clan. It helped unite different factions within the early Muslim community. Think about it, Islam was young, fragile, facing opposition from Mecca. Solidifying loyalty like this was vital.
It was about building a solid foundation for the community.
Precisely. And that leads to the age gap question.
Right.
Muhammad was in his 50s.
Right, another point people find jarring today.
Sure. But again, back then, such age gaps, especially for leaders, were pretty unremarkable. Tribal chiefs, rulers, they often married younger women. Why? To secure alliances, guarantee heirs, consolidate power.
So it was part of the political landscape.
Very much so. We see other examples like Umar ibn al-Khattab, another major figure, later marrying the young Kulthum. It was a known practice tied to leadership and tribal dynamics.
Okay, this brings us to consent. Because from a modern viewpoint, a 9 or 10-year-old, well, they can't give informed consent as we understand it. It seems coercive.
And that's a totally valid modern concern. But we have to ask, like you said, how different was the idea of consent then?
What was it like?
Fundamentally different. Consent wasn't individual, it was familial. Parents, guardians, they arranged marriages. Their main concern wasn't individual preference, but the welfare, the stability, the advantage of the family or the tribe.
Like a collective decision.
Exactly. More like a strategic agreement between families. The historical accounts, the hadiths, they actually say Aisha's father, Abu Bakr, initiated the proposal.
He suggested it.
That's what the sources indicate. And Aisha's voice, or lack thereof, in these arrangements in the sources, that's pretty typical for the time and the patriarchal norms. Young women, especially brides, rarely had a public say. Their family's decision was their consent in that context.
But despite those norms, Aisha didn't just fade into the background. Her later life really pushes back against any image of her as just a passive victim, doesn't it?
Absolutely. That narrative just doesn't hold up when you look at who she became. She emerged as this incredibly confident, really outspoken scholar, a major intellectual figure.
And not just scholarly, right? Didn't she lead troops?
She did. Famously led forces in the Battle of the Camel, and she wasn't afraid to challenge powerful figures, even caliphs like Ali. Her agency, her influence later in life is undeniable.
So tell us more about her intellectual side. You mentioned hadiths.
Immense contributions. She's credited with transmitting over 2,200 hadiths, that's sayings and actions of the Prophet. This makes her one of the most important sources in all of Islamic scholarship.
Wow, over 2,000.
Yeah, for Sunni Muslims, she's second only to Abu Huraira in volume. Think about this. One estimate from a 2023 Islamic History Journal suggests maybe 25%, a quarter, of Sunni legal rulings trace back to her narrations.
A quarter? That's staggering, especially for a woman in that era.
It completely reframes her role. And interestingly, a 2024 study in the Journal of Gender and Islam suggests that her education, which happened under Muhammad, whose sources say encouraged women's learning, was key to her later influence. It implies the marriage actually helped foster her intellectual growth.
So she wasn't just repeating things, she was actively teaching.
Oh, absolutely. She taught law, jurisprudence, poetry, even medicine. She mentored major male scholars like Urwa ibn al-Zubair. Her home was like a center of learning.
That's quite a legacy.
It really is. And it's important to see this marriage within the context of Muhammad's broader character, too.
What do you mean?
Well, his teachings emphasized compassion, justice, education. He explicitly told followers to treat wives kindly. He encouraged freeing slaves. This wasn't happening in a vacuum.
And didn't he have a very different marriage before Aisha?
Right. His first marriage to Khadijah lasted 25 years. She was a widow, about 40 when they married. It shows he wasn't only marrying young women for strategy. His life included different kinds of partnerships.
And his emphasis on knowledge.
Fits perfectly with Aisha's development. That famous saying, seeking knowledge is obligatory for every Muslim, male or female. It aligns with how Aisha's potential was seemingly nurtured.
How do Islamic sources themselves generally portray this specific marriage?
Overwhelmingly positively. The hadiths often describe affection, mutual respect, even playfulness between Muhammad and Aisha. From a traditional Muslim perspective, it's often seen as divinely guided, part of a larger wisdom for establishing Islam, uniting key figures.
Is that view still common?
Very much so. That 2024 Pew Research survey found something like 85% of Muslims globally see the marriage as appropriate within its historical context. There's a widespread theological acceptance based on those traditions.
Okay, but we have to circle back to the modern ethical concerns because they are real and valid.
Definitely.
You look at reports like from UNICEF in 2023 discussing historical child marriage. They argue that even if it was normal then, it still carries risks of harm, physically and psychologically.
And that's a critical point in today's discussions. It raises questions about power dynamics too, right? Muhammad wasn't just any older man, he was the prophet.
Exactly. How does that factor in?
Well, secular scholars, as noted in a 2024 Religion and Society article, often argue that even divine sanction, if claimed, doesn't necessarily excuse practices that conflict with modern human rights standards. There's a fundamental tension there.
And it bumps up against current global efforts too. The campaign to end child marriage is huge. UNICEF says 12 million girls married before 18 every year.
Still happening now.
Right, so defending this historical marriage by saying it was normal then feels difficult when contrasted with those urgent present-day campaigns.
It absolutely does. And there's another layer here, an unfortunate one. These historical debates can get weaponized.
How so?
They can fuel Islamophobia. You see anti-Muslim narratives online, like on X, using hashtags like hashtag Aisha, apparently over 500,000 posts in 2025. They often distort or exaggerate the context to paint Islam negatively.
Which makes having a balanced, nuanced conversation even more important.
Exactly. We need to acknowledge the ethical challenges without feeding prejudice or oversimplifying a complex past.
So let's try to summarize the defensible in context argument. How does that work?
Okay, the core points are: 1, it aligned with 7th century norms where early strategic marriage was common practice. 2, it served crucial political and social goals for the fragile early Muslim community. 3, it elevated Aisha herself to a position of immense influence.
And her later life suggests empowerment, not victimhood.
That's a key part of the argument, yes. Her incredible scholarship, her leadership roles, they point towards growth, nurtured within that context, potentially supported by Muhammad's own emphasis on learning. Consent, while not individual as we see it, followed the accepted familial norms of the time. And her undeniable agency as an adult pushes back hard against simple narratives of coercion.
So defensibility really hangs on accepting historical relativism, judging the past by its own standards.
Essentially, yes, but acknowledging that doesn't mean dismissing modern ethical concerns. It means holding both realities, the historical context and the modern ethical challenge in view at the same time. It's about fostering understanding, not demanding agreement.
It's a complex balancing act.
It truly is. Muhammad's marriage to Aisha, it remains deeply complex. You can argue it was defensible, even necessary within its 7th century context, but it undeniably clashes with modern values. It was absolutely a product of its time, shaped by survival, alliances, the birth of a religion.
Understanding it really demands nuance, doesn't it? Respecting the history while still engaging with those modern critiques.
Precisely. It's not an easy answer.
So we turn it back to you, the listener. What's your take? Can we reconcile this marriage with today's values? Or do we have to keep them in separate boxes, one historical, one ethical?
It's a question worth wrestling with.
We genuinely want to hear what you think. Did our summary resonate? Do you agree? Disagree? Let us know. Leave a comment over on Mind Expansion Daily or wherever you're listening to this deep dive.
Dialogue is key here, approaching it with openness.
And hey, if you found this deep dive valuable, if it made you think, please do like and subscribe to Mind Expansion Daily. It helps us keep bringing you these explorations of complex historical topics. Your support means we can keep diving deep.